You are listening to the A.P.E.X. Hour hosted by Ryan Paul on KSUU Thunder 91.1. This show allows more personal time with our guests, allowing them to give us their stories and opinions. We will also give you new music to listen to, hoping you enjoy some new sounds and genres. Welcome to this episode of the A.P.E.X. Hour.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the A.P.E.X. Hour here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. This week, we were privileged to host alongside the Tanner Center, Miss Gina Davis, and we're even more privileged to have a special guest here in the A.P.E.X. Hour with us. So, Ryan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Amelia. I am so excited to be sitting next to my good friend. I guess I can say that, right? We've known each other for a while. Melinda Pfundstein, who has been an important mentor to me in my life and has been I think I consider her a creative genius.
Oh,
I think that's fair to say. So why don't we start? I always like to let you introduce yourself to us. How would you like to be known?
Well, first I'll introduce myself as an alumna of SUU,
Whoop, whoop.
And I have spent a lot of time on this campus. I did my undergraduate work and my graduate work on this campus, and so I've loved Thunder 91 since I was a student, and I'm so happy to be here today. And I've been in Cedar City on and off for 25 years now, I think. First as a student, and then I left and pursued some creative projects and lived in New York and Milwaukee, and then found myself back in Cedar City about 10, 11 years ago, full time. And this has always been home, but I'm so happy that it is a permanent home right now.
Great, thank you. So most people would know you as an actor for the Utah Shakespeare Festival and other places, but locally here, I think that's people would recognize you on the street often during the summer specifically.
Sure. Yes. I mean, I don't get recognized on the street very often. I'm in grubbies in a hat most often when I'm out in public. No, but I did start as an actor here and was a student first in the psychology department here on campus and then in the theater and dance department. So I double majored while I was in school here and started as an actor. I cut my teeth creatively on the stages at SUU and then continued coming back. And then as the years progressed, started directing and then I was a faculty member, first adjunct and then full faculty member in the theater department for a number of years. And that was just an awesome experience to be in the classroom as a faculty member.
And we went to graduate school together.
We did.
You and I. And so I remember as we were talking, as we were much younger, I guess, in those days, you used this graduate work to form an organization that really means something to you and kind of ties into what Gina Davis was talking about. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd love to. So this organization is a nonprofit organization that is worldwide, actually, through one of our programs, and it is called Statera Arts. Statera is the Latin word for balance, and this is a gender parity organization or gender balance organization for women in the arts. And the mission is to bring women into full and equal participation in the arts. And yes, as we were in the program together, better than anyone, because you were my partner in crime those days, that in those early days, I was really kind of floundering and I needed a reference point. And we created a couple things together, but then I landed on this need for disrupting the idea that women have to be pitted against women, that there isn't enough opportunity, and there isn't. There needs to be more awareness brought to that, but that separation is the answer. And we started asking questions in an informal way. And then, yes, while I was in the program, the Arts Administration program, I did utilize each of those classes to walk me through the process of forming a nonprofit and then gathering a little bit bigger, throwing events so that we could find our seed funding to establish the nonprofit. And then at the end of the degree, when I finished the program, we hosted our first of 4 national conferences for gender parity in the arts.
And let's when you say gender parity, let's define that term.
Parity is balance. It's just balance. So we want to make sure that the opportunities that are available, that there, when there's an opportunity for a man, that there's also an opportunity for a woman, right? And that there is opportunity for many different intersections. And so, of course, not just gender, but then looking at all different types of identities. And so within the work that we were doing, we were also looking at the balance of race and of gender, of course, of size. Are there opportunities for people of size in a room? Are there people of differing abilities in a room? And are there opportunities for all of these different intersections? And then those intersections, I think, and the way that they overlap with gender. So, and when I say intersections, I'm talking about a term that was coined by Kimberly Crenshaw. And this is the idea that we are all made up of many different identities. So I'm a woman, I'm white, I'm in my 40s, I'm a creative, I have children, I'm a partner. All of those things, those are pieces of my identity that make up all of the different parts of me. And when you have a traditionally unrepresented identity, and then you layer on anything on top of it, then the misrepresentation or the lack of representation or opportunity just compounds and becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So when we talk about opportunity for a woman of color who is generally falls to the bottom of any conversations about race or any conversations about gender, we want to make sure that we're talking about both of those things. And the intersection is just as important as talking about gender balance or about racial balance.
So it's not just about finding opportunities. It's about changing the mindset of how we do what we do in not only producing art, but in thinking about these things in general.
Yes, it is absolutely about changing mindset. And not only the mindset of the organizations and the institution and the leadership, but also the mindset of the people who benefit or do not benefit from the opportunity or lack of opportunity. So a lot of our work, and when we began the work with Statera Arts, we set out to work with organizations and leadership, executive leaders who have the power to make change within their organizations. And so that is top-down change, right? But we found that the most important work that we were doing had to do with disrupting the idea that I can't go in and negotiate for more. If I ask for more, or if I negotiate for the salary that I know that my male colleague is getting, they're going to find the next woman next to me, and so I can't negotiate for myself, right? That internal belief, that was what we went to work in disrupting. And that was really where our work naturally flowed in the beginning, because then we said, how do we do that? And that became mentorship was an answer for that. Gathering in spaces that were about networking and making friends and connections and finding opportunities for more collaboration, so that we weren't creating more opportunity for separation. That became our way of getting at the bottom up conversation, or inside out, with the individual person, how we actually advocate for that for ourselves.
So I'm interested in this idea when you mentioned about women being pitted against women. Is this really this internal idea? So you talk about, I can't negotiate for myself because they'll just go to the next woman that they need. Is that idea coming from a top-down thing, or is it women themselves making that judgment? I mean, are there? I'm not answering this correctly, but are there challenges between women themselves? Is this a problem that is solved also internally as well as externally?
I think this is a great time to call back to what we experienced with Gina Davis today. So much of her lecture this morning was geared toward what work needs to be done to just teach kids in their first access to media and the things that they take in, the movies, the things they read and see in books, the things they listen to, and to just teach them that girls and boys are equal, right? And I think then the answer to your question is, most of us don't receive a balanced. I mean, there aren't enough opportunity, or there isn't enough representation that is balanced in children's cartoons and movies, right? And Gina shared with us the numbers that tell us that is getting better. But those messages are ingrained so early on. They're also then supported. Those messages are supported by our parents or our caregivers, because generations before are also bringing in what they know. And what I know is that my dad went to work, and that my mom went to work and came home and also made dinner and also picked us up from school, and also, right? But my dad got the bigger opportunities for salary, but my mom was, I mean, her span of day, if we were paying her for her effort and time, it would have been a profound increase in her salary, right?
So it's kind of like when you, I hope this doesn't sound trivial, but it's like when you show your kids a movie that you watched when you were younger, and you think to yourself, oh boy, I can't believe I'm showing this to my kids, right? Because it's either more graphic, or than you, as a parent, it's different than when you see it as a kid.
Yeah.
And I guess it's interesting to think about what these kids are processing from the things they're watching at this moment.
Yeah. Oh, during COVID, my best friend, Jason, came and stayed and helped. He's uncle to my kids. And he came and stayed during COVID, and we decided to have an 80s and 90s movie marathon. So we would pick a movie out of a hat every day, and then we would sit down and watch that. And so we were watching things like Goonies and 16 Candles and Can't Buy Me Love, and watching these movies these are movies that I grew up on. I wanted to be these leading characters. I wanted to have best friend relationships with the people, right? But watching these movies, I'm like, wait, where are all the women? And where are the women who are standing up for something in their own lives and stand on their own and have a full arc of a story that doesn't have to do with getting the guy or getting in the way of the girl who has the guy, or something about the guy, right? Either volleying up the ball so that the guy could take the big plot ball and carry it forward. And so, the things that I grew up on absolutely taught me that I have to play small. I can't speak loudly. If I speak my mind, I'm going to be perceived in a certain way. And if I advocate for myself, I'm going to come across as bossy or pushy. Therefore, smaller, quieter, more polite. All of these things that get in the way of living your most expansive and creative life, which is, I think, where we're going in this conversation about creativity.
So these things that you're talking about, were they explicitly told to you ever, or were they reinforced now that you're thinking back?
That's a good question. Never explicitly. I can't recall a time when this was explicitly said. Gina talked again today about unconscious bias.
Right.
And I think the unconscious aspect, giving people the benefit of the doubt, which is where I like to live. I think most of the bias is unconscious. I think it is just the way that we are brought up, the things that we've been taught to believe, the habits that, the way we live our lives, and the habits that we carry out in our lives. It's just, I think every message that I got when I opened up a teen magazine was, your job is to look pretty and look pretty and skinny, that was the messaging that I got as I was not, you have the ability to be a healer as a doctor or a scientist, and you have the opportunity to have these rad jobs. You have the opportunity to be a change maker in the world. And all of these ideas that were alive and well when I was a kid and playing make-believe on the street and owning my block, with these big make-believes about the kind of impact I was going to make in the world. Of course, I didn't know then. It was just big make-believe stories. But all of that imagination and creativity, for me, was never aimed toward opportunity. It was aimed toward this is just fun and games, but then when you get older, the job just fits in this little box of what your place in the world is.
Do you think that is one of the reasons that acting resonated with you? That it led you to be these different types of people that you were kind of thought you couldn't be?
Interesting question. I think the bug for acting came from a desire to express bigger. Yes, I think the answer is yes. The interesting thing is the roles that I was right for and quote unquote right for that I was getting when I was first entering the field were just like the roles that I was brought up on. All I was doing was lobbying up the ball for the men in the stories to take them and run with the plot in the really cool storylines.
Very cool. So we're going to go to our first break. And normally, as I have mentioned to you, we ask our guests to choose some of their songs. And when I asked you that, you pretty much told me, well,
my favorite song is the one right in front of me.
No, right?
Yeah.
So I chose some songs that reminded me of you, and this is one of my favorites. This is a really sing aloud song for me. When I hear this song, I think of you and a few other people in my life because you have stood up and expressed these ideas with a strong and powerful voice. And that song is "I Am Woman" by Helen Reddy.
Oh yes.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend, 'cause I've heard it all before, and I've been down there on the floor. No one's ever gonna keep me down again. Well, yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom won't pay. Yes, I paid the price, but look how much I gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman. You can bend but never break me, 'cause it only serves to make me more determined to achieve my final goal. And I come back even stronger, not a novice any longer, 'cause you've deepened the conviction in my soul. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Yes, I paid the price, but look how much I gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman. I am woman, watch me grow, see me standing toe to toe, as I spread my loving arms across the land. But I'm still an embryo with a long, long way to go, until I make my brother understand. Oh yes, I am wise, but it's wisdom born of pain. Yes, I've paid the price, but look how much I gained. If I have to, I can face anything. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman. I am woman. I am invincible, I am strong, I am woman. I am invincible, I am strong,
Hello, everyone, and welcome back with us here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. You're listening to the A.P.E.X. Hour, and Ryan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Amelia. We're here with my good friend Melinda Pfundstein, and we're talking about this idea of representation in some ways and finding out different intersections and identities. And my question is, I think all of us hopefully would agree that what you're talking about is solid. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. So my question really is, what's the pushback? Like, as you begin this work and as you talked with Gina Davis about this, what is the pushback here?
Well, I mentioned unconscious bias based on what we learned from Gina this morning. And I think, again, the pushback is internal many times. And I think so much work is available to us from the inside out in terms of just learning to advocate for ourselves as human beings, much less when you add intersections into that. And then, the institutions and the that top-down idea of what has always been and what our idea of a leader looks like. There's this joke. It's not a joke, but I will probably not remember this correctly, but it's a riddle, something like there's a kid who gets in an accident and the kid's mom isn't I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about here? I shouldn't have brought this up. Anyway, the idea is that they describe this doctor, and then how the riddle is, how did this happen? Oh, the one of the parents died, and in the crash, and then the doctor came and said, I can't operate because this is my son. Mm-hmm. How does this work out? And then most people, it's a riddle because most people say, oh, we can't figure it out. The dad died so how did that happen? And the answer to the riddle is that the doctor is the mom,
Right, yeah.
And so this idea of what does a doctor look like? What does a scientist look like? And again, going back to Gina Davis, the mission of her organization at the Gina Davis Institute for Gender and Media is, if she can see it, she can be it. If they can see it, if they can be it, right? So I think the pushback is that when we don't have examples of something, our imagination it stops. When we don't have if we don't have railroad in front of us of what it looks like or how it can be, we stop thinking. We just go with what we know and what has always been.
So do you think most people go into this kind of work and what you're talking about, this transformational work, really is a way to say, I need to find out who I am and I need to be the best me that I can be? Or do you go into it saying, I am going to be a pathfinder, a trailblazer for other people so they can see me there?
I think it's probably different for, every person you ask. And the former question is really like, that's the meaning of life, right? If you ask me, I think that's the thing we're asking until we're on our deathbeds. But I do think that in my case with Statera, the forming of that was a way for me to give voice and advocate for other women in ways that I hadn't figured out how to advocate for myself yet. That work has helped me find a vocabulary and also find my ethos for how I advocate in the world. Because my way of advocating for anything that I feel strongly about is always about relationships first, is always about discourse and dialogue and mutual respect and civility. And so when we started out with Statera, we just heard Governor Cox speak at President Minnie Benson's inauguration, and I keep hearing the echo of him describing people as builders or destroyers. And there are so many destroyers in advocacy work especially. And I do believe that sometimes we do need destroyers. It's like nature. Sometimes we need a wildfire so that the undergrowth and the brush can grow up with new life, right? So I do believe that sometimes we do need to destroy. I am a builder through and through, and I actually just I just can't operate in a world of, or in an environment that is based on destruction. And So the idea of advocating by burning down the house is never the way I will always choose the relationship over the advocacy. And I think because of that made Statera, we were doing advocacy for women in a different way. And on the other side of that, I think my advocacy for all of the things that I feel passionate about now happen with this vocabulary that was learned by practicing civility first and bringing people along. And if people aren't interested or they have differing views and are not willing or ready to have a conversation about gender balance, then that's nothing. I lose nothing, right? It's just love the person and then move on to the next person who is ready for the conversation. So did that answer your question?
Yeah. So essentially what you're really teaching when you do this kind of stuff is how to be human beings.
Well, I think that is what we're doing with art, right? And that's the brilliance of a degree in the theater, especially. In my classrooms, it was always about how do we get better at being human? How do we get better with each other? So definitely in the arts, that's the point.
And I think that's part of the challenge is that it's been my experience that when you tell someone, or when I tell myself I can do better, that doesn't mean that I'm doing bad.
No.
And when we talk about pushback, I think specifically in today's world where we say, in history, we need to rethink these things and understand the past. Well, I don't want to feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
Well, the point is, it's not saying that you did anything bad. It's just saying that you can do better. So by being better doesn't mean you were in a bad place.
Right. And I think that is, when people get really confrontational about advocacy, I think that is it. That if you cling to that binary and you're swinging the pendulum between what is good and what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, it's always going to lead you towards separation. And also leads you further away from coming to some understanding through compassion and from a place of really deep connected humanity. And so I think just removing that good-bad binary and just saying, look, we know what we know up to this point, and we can't know anything more than that. And then when we know more, we've got to just do better with what we know, and it's still not going to be everything. And so if we can just sort of learn forward, there's that phrase "fall forward," but I love to think of it as learning forward, because staying open to the idea that I don't have all the answers, and if we disagree, or if there's something I feel passionately about or very strongly about that I'm advocating for, and we differ in opinion, my go-to is tell me more. There's that Brene Brown quote that sits on my wall in my office, that hate is hard close up, get closer. And that is my mantra for the way that I navigate through the world of advocacy, and even in my creative work, how I navigate through a world of thinking imaginatively about race, about gender, about identity, about size, about ability, in the things that I have the power to cast or hire for. It's the idea of it's hard already. It's hard enough already. And so we have to get closer.
Yeah, so speaking about that, when you talk about teaching and casting and directing, how do you then say, look, not everyone can be an actor, right? Not everyone, well, I guess everyone can be an actor because we all are, I guess, in one sense of the term or another. But when you were teaching and someone you knew just didn't have it, right? How do you tell somebody that then if we're talking about, compassion and inclusivity? I mean, how do you have those uncomfortable conversations, which will come about not just acting, but about hate and race and gender and all those other kind of things?
Yeah. Well, that's the reason that I in my classroom, it was never about being the best professional. It was about how do we get better at being better human beings. And, going from studying psychology to being an actor, I always used to say that I went from studying human behavior to studying human behavior, you know? And the more we know about human behavior, the more we understand, well, that we know less, that we don't know everything. And the more we understand just and respect the differences, I think, between human beings. And when we are playing out stories and narratives, and when we are storytelling and using the voice of a character who has a particular set of circumstances, we have to expand our perspective beyond what we know. And I think with that comes a greater amount of space, I think, for more acceptance. I don't like the word tolerance, more love, really. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So what does a better human being look like to you? I mean, what? Obviously not perfect, but what does a better human being look like?
I don't know what a better human being looks like, but I know that I feel like I'm doing it better when I am open to learning, and especially when I fall, or when I when I feel like I am out of alignment with who I want to be or the way that I'm showing up in the world. For me, better feels like, what am I doing with that? Am I able to not dust myself off, but really witness the lesson that is available, and then what's on the other side of that lesson? I think that idea of doing it better, and this is something that I did with my classes too, and when I speak, this is something I share with this good, bad, and ugly thing. And it's just any time you do something of importance, or anytime there's a framework around something that you're doing, just asking, what did I do well? Like, what do I want to do again? And then the bad part, and again, not the good, bad binary, but is for me the question, what do I want to do different or better next time? And then the ugly is, where did I self-sabotage and get in my own way? And that middle question of just being available to the lesson of, all right, so I know what I did well. I know what I want to do again. I know where I self-sabotaged. But that middle question of, what do I want to do differently or better next time, just opens up a world of possibility for learning. And that feels like what better looks like to me.
Cool. Let's move into our next break. This, thank you, by the way. This song, I heard you actually sing this once, and it is very thoughtful to me. It's from one of my favorite all-time musicals, and we went through a challenging time in COVID, and you and I have known each other for many years, and we are both in different places than when we first met in a variety of ways, and I think about this often and used this phrase before, but this is from the musical Ragtime, a song called Back to Before. And this is the idea of a mother and a wife who can't adjust to what the life in which she has supposedly supposed to be. Is that fair to say? I'm telling that story correctly? Sure. But this is a beautiful version, and I remember, I can still see it in my mind, you singing this, and I use this all the time, this phrase that we just can't go back to before.
There was a time our happiness seemed never ending. I was so sure that where we were heading was right. Life was a road so certain and straight and unbending. Our little road with never a crossroad in sight. Back in the days when we spoke in civilized voices, women in white and sturdy young men at the oar. Back in the days when I let you make all my choices. We can never go back to before. was a time my feet were so solidly planted, you'd sail away while I turned my back to the sea. I was content, a princess asleep and enchanted. If I had dreams, then I let you dream them for me. Back in the days when everything seemed so much clearer, women in white who knew what their lives held in store. Where are they now, those women who stared from the mirror? We can never go back to before. There are people out there unafraid of revealing that they might have a feeling, or they might have been wrong. There are people out there unafraid to feel sorrow, unafraid of tomorrow, unafraid to be weak, unafraid to be strong. There was a time when you were the person in motion. I was your wife. It never occurred to want more. You were my sky, my moon, and my stars, and my ocean. We can never go back to before. We can never go back to
Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the A.P.E.X. Hour here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. That was Back to Before from Ragtime the Musical, and I'll turn it back over to you, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to talk about creativity a little bit. And really, my first question about this is, when did you know what you wanted to do with your life? Or have you found that out yet?
I think I'm on a pretty good aligned track right now. I didn't know as a kid what I wanted to be. As I said, I was always very interested in human behavior. I still think that I will go back and do some doctoral work in psychology, but more in the space of wholeness and moving beyond equity, diversity, inclusion, and access to that belonging stage, which I think is the result of equity, diversity, inclusion, and access work. But then for me, I want my doctoral work to be about what wholeness looks like, which I think is what is yielded by belonging. So I know that that's a trajectory I'm on, but I also am incredibly interested in leadership now. And so I want my work in the leadership world to take root in a way that is about wholeness and how we nurture more holistic environments where people can show up more authentically, more whole, in more compassionate and loving and holistic ways. As a kid, I didn't know that. I just knew that I just thought human beings were really cool. Came to school to study psychology. And then, of course, I think the creative in me found fulfillment in telling stories and picking up narratives that weren't mine, to mine them for humanity that I hadn't peeked into yet.
So I'm going to work backwards here. So how did your then creative expression, how has it changed over time? I don't want to say matured, but how has it changed?
It's it just becomes freer and freer. And because of that, I think a more expansive expression of myself, of my experiences, of my own humanity, of my relationships. And I think when I first started studying creativity, I think everybody is creative, but when I first started studying theater and music, for me it was about the rules, and I was a rule follower. I still am in some ways, in many ways. But I was a rule follower and I wanted to get it right. And there was this really strong perfectionist part in me that just wanted to get it right. And that was the most important thing. As I got older, I learned that breaking, knowing the rules so that you can mold them and bend it and shape it is really a sweet spot for me. And in that space of knowing the rules, honoring the rules, and then asking the right questions, or asking big questions and thoughtful questions, has just expanded the work and what is possible in my creative life.
So where then do you think your creative energy comes from? Is it internal? Is it external? Is it, from somewhere else? I mean, where does that come from?
I think it's one of the things that I was sent here with, whatever you believe. I just think that that's one of the things that I'm here to express through, and to make my contribution on this earth through. I also find, because I think creatively, and that is my default. I think everything is in bold color and big broad strokes, and I see connectivity in everything. And I think one of my strengths, and one of the things that I express through, is this way of seeing seemingly disparate information and then finding the way that it's all connected. And that's one of the ways that my creativity shows up. And because of that, I also am inspired creatively by everything around me. I mean, your plaid shirt connects for me with that thing on the wall, with the, and then the meaning for why we're here today. I mean, if you were to ask me to connect all of that into a linear, theme, that is a really rad process for me.
The two images that come to my mind when you're talking about that is either one, that is a very divine way of thinking, divine in the sense of godlike, right? That you see past, present, and future. You see interconnectivity in all things. Or it's one of those movies where a conspiracy theorist has little note cards on a wall, that little strings that go everywhere to all kinds of things. So which is it for you? I'm
not a strings on the wall and Post-it notes on the wall type of person. So I guess if the only other option is that it's,
yes.
that
is the only other option.
I don't know how to answer that question, Ryan. I mean, creativity, the creative process in itself, I think, is an expression of divinity.
Yeah. Right. No.
I mean, everything that is beautiful in the world has to do with expression. It has, the way a flower buds and blooms is an expression, right? And
So I know it comes down to this idea, in my mind, really, of nurture versus nature, right? So is creativity something that's part of your human nature that people are born with, or is it something that needs to be nurtured or taught and learned? Like, can you learn to be creative in an innate sense? So is it nurture? Is it nature? Is it both?
I think creativity is innate. I think just by virtue of us being human beings, we are creative. And do you nurture that? I think nurturing it, what you nurture, what you focus on grows and expands. But I believe that nature is absolutely a part of it. And I think we all start as extremely, as creative beings. And that the nurturing or lack of nurturing, whatever specific pieces of our identity and our personalities and our humanity is what we do. I think that's what we do with it.
And I guess to kind of thread our conversation together is that in many ways, almost every act of creation is also an act of destruction. Is that, am I too thinky there, or is that something that, does that make sense? I mean, the simple sense is like we've seen those old-timey Antiques Roadshow places where painters had painted over canvases, or I'm going to take this like a collage, for example, is destroying pieces of something to create something else. Some acting teachers would say that I need to destroy you completely so I can rebuild you into this character.
And I say N-O.
Yeah,
no.
I know. But you know what I'm saying, though, right? Is that that we cut Shakespeare scripts. I mean, it is all about piecing something together from pieces that exist before.
Yeah. See, this is why we've always been partners in crime in academic settings, especially because you see
Thank
things
you for
from
saying academic. Don't confess our sins.
Yeah, I know. No, but I that's a really cool way of thinking about it. And I just think of everything as creation. So I love that way of describing it.
So in your, we've talked about this idea of being seen and representation and those kinds of things, but in your particular creative journey, right, whether it's in your life or whatever, what has been kind of the greatest opposing force for you? What has pushed back against you the most as you think about that?
Myself. 100%. I don't even know that I need to expand. I mean, I am my worst enemy, and I think in any situation where I have, fallen flat on my face, the worst part about it is what I have said to myself, what I have believed about myself. And working through that stuff is the great work of, that's the great work of humanity. That's what theater's made about, right? But bar none, the worst pushback is me.
So how does criticism play into that? Like I would imagine that being on stage or even being a creative person, speaking, public speaking, those kinds of things, when the audience isn't with you, when there's criticism that exists, how do you process that?
Well, there's the saying, and everybody says it was my teacher who said this, but there's the saying that, and I don't know who it was, says that what other people think about you is none of your business. And for me, what people thought of me, it's not that I've got this handled now at the ripe old age of my age, but I think when I was younger, I really believed what other people said about me, and I was really concerned about what other people said. And I think as I have matured, as I have done my own work and in my human way, the less it is, the more I understand that people are just coming from where they're coming from, right? And that it actually is none of my business what they think of me. And so in a really aligned and solid and when I'm really firm on my feet and really aligned in who I am and what I'm doing, that's Zen putting in the zone for me. I'm all there. I know that what they think is none of my business. I'm just going to keep trying to do my best. Mm-hmm. That's not the state that I or anybody lives in all of the time. And so when there's criticism, sometimes it stings. And in my profession, there's a lot of criticism. And, people feel as though it is their job to tell you how you're doing your job when you were an artist. And I think you grow a thick skin. I am learning that actually if I really let it in and witness what it's doing to me, the information about what it's doing to me is much more valuable than what they're saying or not saying is. And so I don't know, it's a process.
I think that's sweet. And we're going to go into our final break because I want to, this song is is important to me because we talked about creativity. We directed a little bit toward criticism, and this is a person who received lots of criticism, but is considered to be an American icon. And I will tell you this: this song is called "It Ain't You, Babe" by Johnny Cash. Because one, you're the most Johnny Cash person I know, and so just put that there. Secondly, we always think this song is Johnny Cash singing about a partner, but if you think about it, when you hear it, his wife June Carter is singing along back at him. So this to me reminds me of you as being this creative person who's saying, look, I'm not the one you think that I am, because you have mentioned that people come on and could come to you and say they think they know you because they've seen you on stage. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I see this. She says, it ain't me, babe.
Go away from my window, leave at your own chosen speed. I'm not the one you want, babe. I'm not the one you need. You say you're looking for someone who's never weak, but always strong, to protect you and defend you, whether you are right or wrong. Someone to open each and every door, but it ain't me, babe. No, 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 it ain't me, babe. It ain't me you're looking for, babe. Go lightly from the ledge, babe. Go lightly on the ground. I'm not the one you want, babe. I'll only let you down. You say you're looking for someone who'll promise never to part, someone to close his eyes for you, someone to close his heart, someone to die for you and more. But it ain't me, babe. No, 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 it ain't me, babe. It ain't me you're looking for, babe. You say you're looking for someone to pick you up each time you fall, to gather flowers constantly and to come each time you call, and will love you for your life and nothing more. But it ain't me, babe. No, 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 it ain't me, babe. It ain't me you're looking for, babe.
That was It Ain't Me, Babe by Johnny Cash, and you're here with us on KSUU Thunder 91.1. You're with us for the final moments of the A.P.E.X. Hour. It's been a phenomenal hour, so Ryan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, and thank you, Amelia, and thank you, Melinda, for being here and sharing your thoughts and insights. As always in our conversations, I have more to think about as I leave than when I walked in the door. So thank you. So we always ask this of all our guests. We're joined on microphone with our amazing assistant producer, Sophie Javage.
Thank you, Ryan.
So this is a question, Melinda, that we ask everybody. What are you currently watching, reading, or listening to that is bringing you joy?
I am currently watching... I'm not currently watching anything. I'm watching my kiddos. They're growing very quickly right now. I'm going to say I'm watching my kiddos. and that's bringing me joy. I am reading again a book called The Art of Gathering. The author's name is Priya. Now, because I'm trying to remember their name, I'm not going to remember it. But The Art of Gathering, and it's my second and a half time through it. And it's a beautiful book that has really changed my view on why and how we share space with each other. What was the third one?
Listening to, but you can only do one. You don't have to do all three. It's up to you. Are you listening to anything that's bringing you joy?
This is a really hard one for me because I listen to like 50 things at once. So, I've got my morning fare, and then my, getting ready to leave the house fare, and then my on the way to, which is why I couldn't figure out songs for you. So I can't answer that, except that I think my favorite thing to listen to is silence. After listening to all of that stuff, I love like a long car ride completely in silence, and that brings me a lot of joy.
See, I'm bringing silent. I was being silent to bring joy. Sophie Javage, what are you currently watching, reading, or listening to that is bringing you joy?
So there's this show on Amazon Prime, and Amelia and I were actually talking about this yesterday. It is called Modern Love, and it is a compilation of all these stories of people who live in New York, and it's not just romantic relationships, but it's friendships, and it's like internal relationships with oneself, and it's all these cool different stories, and each episode is done by completely different actors, and like none of them correlate except that they're all in New York City. And that has brought me so much joy this week. I've not been able to stop watching it, and it's just a really cool show to check out.
Cool. Thank you. Amelia Nauman, what are you currently watching, reading, or listening to that is bringing you joy?
See, I have to piggyback off of that because it's what we were talking about. Modern Love, the podcast, is mine. I'm not too much into the TV show. I haven't gotten into that yet, but I would highly recommend the podcast. All right, Ryan, so I'm going to turn this question back over to you. What are you currently watching, reading, or listening to that is bringing you joy?
I have rediscovered a song that means a lot to me. We've been thinking about music a lot recently. It's a song called I Gotta Be Me. Now, there's two versions of it. There's Steve Lawrence, who all of you were too young to remember, as kind of I was as well. But the version that is the best is Sammy Davis Jr., who is the consummate showman. And he sang this song at an event where he'd been castigated for selling out, like they thought he was too much of an Uncle Tom, and he sang this song, I Gotta Be Me, and that version of that song is absolutely incredible, and that is what is bringing me joy this week.
Alrighty, thank you all so much for joining us here on the A.P.E.X. Hour this week. We are going to send out with one final song, one final choice, and that is Both Sides Now by Neil Diamond.
Rows and flows of angel hair, ice cream castles in the air, feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain, they snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds, illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, a dizzy dancing way you feel, as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. leave them laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud, say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds, I've looked at life that way. But now old friends are acting strange. They shake their heads and say I've changed. But something's lost when something's gained. Living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all.
Thanks so much for listening to the A.P.E.X. Hour here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. Come find us every Thursday at 3 p.m. right here on Thunder 91. We would love for you to come to our events on campus. For more information, check out suu.edu/apex. Until next time, that was the A.P.E.X. Hour on Thunder 91.1.